Hello everyone, and thanks for watching FPU's Channel 6. I'm Gina Warren, and today our guest is Mr. Tim Troutman with the National Weather Service out of Huntsville, Alabama. Good to see you, Tim.
It's good to be here, Gina. Right. Thanks for having me
Sure,
today.
Glad to have you back. Tim has been on our show before, and it's that time of year. It's great to come back to us again and talk about severe weather. And it's been a hot topic around Lincoln County the past few months, and as these thunderstorms continue to roll in during our early spring and late winter months, it's great to be reminded of what we need to look out for and what precautions to take. But of course, before we get into that, now tell us a little bit about what you do at the National Weather Service.
At the National Weather Service, I'm a meteorologist there and routinely monitor the radar and issue the appropriate forecast and warnings that you hear on the radio, see on TV, and on the internet. We issue the official forecast and warnings for severe weather. So when you see or hear the National Weather Service in Huntsville has issued a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning or flash flood warning or winter storm warning, all that information comes to you directly from the National Weather Service that covers Lincoln County from Huntsville, Alabama.
All right, great. And you all work round the clock, 7 days a week, is that right?
That's correct. There's always at least 2 meteorologists on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. So even on the holidays, there are always at least 2 people there monitoring the radar, issuing the appropriate weather forecast and warnings to hopefully protect the residents in Lincoln and surrounding counties here involving the hazards that we can typically see through the year.
Right, and you do cover much of the northern Alabama area, but a lot of southern Middle Tennessee as well.
Yes, we do have 3 counties that we watch and monitor in our county warning and forecast area. Each Weather Service office has a county warning and forecast area, and we monitor 14 counties. 11 counties in North Alabama, basically from the Shoals to Coleman to Fort Payne and all the way up to the Tennessee state line. And then we also have the 3 counties in southern Middle Tennessee, Lincoln, Moore, and Franklin counties.
Okay, very good. So like I said, when we're hearing those warnings come out, we know that that's active weather forecast or predictions for our area.
That's our objective, is to be as timely and accurate as possible. And we want to be as much as we can be with technology, the no surprise National Weather Service. Weather is an inexact science, so it is getting to that point technology-wise that we've made it to that kind of plateau right now with the level of technology we have, and we're working as hard as we can to get it as close enough to 100% accurate as possible.
Good. Well, you do a great job, and we appreciate all those warnings you all send out. Even if they're in the middle of the night and you wake me up, I'm glad to know that there's a storm or a possible tornado headed my way, because I feel safer knowing that you all are at work.
Well, good. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
we
it's a great
do what
service.
we can.
All right, great. And of course, Tim has been here before. You said you are a meteorologist. What kind of schooling did you have to have in your background to do what you do today?
To become a meteorologist, you really you have to have at least a 4-year degree in either atmospheric science or meteorology. And personally, I attended Western Kentucky University and was able to get my necessary education requirements there. There are other universities for folks that may be interested in the field of meteorology that offer degrees. Some of the more popular ones include University of Oklahoma, Penn State, Florida State, Purdue University, and there are several others. I don't want to leave anyone out. There is a link to that on the National Weather Association website. That's at nwas.org if folks are interested in the education part of it in becoming a meteorologist.
All right. It sounds like a really exciting career. And you know, Tim, everybody talks about the weather. On a daily basis, we talk about the weather.
Yeah, whether or not, I guess there's always weather in that sense, right?
That's right.
You know, that's true, and folks really need to know day by day do they need to wear extra layer of clothing, or you know, or is it going to be warm, or is it going to be, you know,
we
like
do.
you
We
say,
plan
rain?
our lives around what the weather's going to do, whether we work indoors or outdoors. It's important to all of us.
It's true.
Especially this time of year, and the timing is perfect for you to come back to FPU and talk about the weather, because we're looking at severe storm weather again. I think even tonight, as we're recording this, there's a chance of rain this evening, and a lot of crazy weather changes coming up. I've noticed right before you got here for this whole week. You know, chance of precipitation, frozen precipitation later in the week. And February this year has just been one of those crazy months, back and forth, when it's been 60 and 30s. And what do you explain that? How do you explain that as a weatherman?
Well, one way to explain it as we head into the winter months, the jet stream, it's a cold conveyor belt of wind that pushes across the area from the northwest. That jet stream gets closer to our area. We get the colder air moving down into the region from Canada. As that cold air moves in, that's when it usually leads to a marked change in the weather conditions, involving whether we're 70 degrees one day or 30 the next and snowing. And usually with the jet stream being active, that means these air masses are pushing rather quickly across the U.S. And as that continues to happen, that's been basically the trend through the winter. We'll have a quick shot of cold air followed by a nice warming trend, and another change again in the offing, and it has led to a more active storm track across the middle part of the country, and that's led so far to us being at or above normal, involving precipitation as we've headed through the winter months into toward the end of February into early March. So this time of the year, it's important for us to get the necessary rainfall.
Absolutely.
So that we can make it into the summer without a drought developing.
Right, that's right. And like you said, the weather pattern has definitely been crazy. You know, and working here at the utility office, we always encourage people to set your thermostat and leave it alone. Well, we haven't been able to do that much this winter. So yeah, but it's no fault of yours. It's just interesting to know how that all works, and why we have, you know, these warm days, and then we right behind that down in the freezing levels again.
Yeah.
But as we talked about, you know, we're looking right in the face of the month of March and April, and even May can bring severe weather to the Middle Tennessee area. So in your point of view, we know what we consider weather threats. From your point of view, Tim, what is a weather threat for us?
The main types of severe weather that we can typically get as we head out of the late winter into the spring months can be definitely a quick winter weather shot of either snow or freezing rain type of event. It still wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility if we might even receive one more event before the end of the winter. So that's one thing that we need to still kind of keep in the back of our minds until we get into the latter part of March. There is a potential for snow. 20 years ago, March the 18th through around the 20th was the superstorm across the area, and we had in a lot of the locations in North Alabama and southern Middle Tennessee up to or above a foot of snow. So it's still can happen.
Right.
Yeah. The other main threats that we take a look at include severe thunderstorms, flash flooding, river flooding. Those are some of the other hazards that can happen. High winds with these fast-moving weather systems. We can get these high wind events where we could receive 40, 50-mile-an-hour winds. Not related to thunderstorms, but that could knock out electricity or even some trees and power lines and limbs and things like that. So those are some of the hazards. The number one weather hazard that typically occurs as we get into the spring that we need to really be concerned about year by year are tornadoes. So a tornado is a violently rotating column of air that's in contact with the ground, and until it does happen, it's not a tornado until it touches down. We receive reports of funnel clouds, and that is very important for us to know about, because a funnel cloud is definitely a precursor to a tornado developing. And if that funnel gets more than halfway down to the ground from the base or the bottom of the thunderstorm, usually on the southwest corner of the backside of the thunderstorm, where you have a rain-free cloud base. Where that's happening, then that can lead definitely to that development of that tornado. And when tornadoes do touch down, they can occur any month of the year across the area in the Tennessee Valley region. Typically, though, tornadoes do occur at their most frequent level, definitely in March, April, and May, with April being the peak month of occurrence historically. And the two main events that have occurred in the Tennessee Valley region in the past 40 plus years have been the super tornado outbreak of April 3rd, 1974, and the April 27th, 2011 tornado outbreak.
So we all remember it.
And in both of those outbreaks, there were at least 2 tornadoes that occurred in Lincoln County. So that area in the southern or southeast part of Lincoln County is prone to tornado activity, and the other areas of the county, especially west of Fayetteville, can typically receive potential for tornadoes due to their preferred tracks or tracks that they have occurred in the past. January 30th this past year, we had a tornado that struck early in the morning, and it moved from the Del Rose area in the county. Was what we would call an EF1 tornado, and that did some damage as it developed before about 6 a.m. in the county. So even though we are looking at fairly, I guess you could say, normal season expected, tornadoes can occur any month of the year in our area. So the peak time of occurrence monthly, by the amount of days that tornadoes typically have been recorded to occur since 1874 across our area, has been in the month of May. And April comes in number 2, followed by March, and then you look at November and February. Those are the other peak months that the tornadoes have been noted to or documented to have occurred. And we've looked at several ways to document the data via historical methods, via looking at newspaper articles, reports through the data, and that's been tallied for all the way back since the mid to late 1800s.
Wow. So,
by the county, if you look at the counties, then across the area, we typically in the county, in Lincoln County, the tornadoes have been somewhere in the mid to upper 20 range in the southern middle Tennessee over the years, and that's an important thing to note, that even though there have been several tornadoes that have occurred in Lincoln County, the first tornado that was officially documented occurred on March the 14th, 1851. That tornado moved through the center of town and basically did an extensive amount of damage to the Presbyterian church. There's still, when you round that corner right past the Presbyterian church, there's a large headstone right there on the right-hand side if you're driving east through the downtown area. That headstone was one of the folks who perished in that tornado, March the 14th, 1851. I believe his last name was Rousey, R-O-W-Z-E-E, from the headstone. But we've had other events, historically in the county. There have been events in March 27th, 1890, April 30th, 1909, October 14th, 1909, that have affected Fayetteville and the surrounding areas. The other big event of note that did strike the downtown area as we were heading out of the winter months was the Leap Day tornado of February 29th, 1952. And then, I guess, of course, the next big event was April 3rd, 74. So the annual frequency of tornadoes has been a cyclical process, I guess you could call it, through the years. There have been up and down cycles in their development and occurrence. And, we've had basically in the mid to late 50s, we had an increase, and then again in the mid 60s, an increase in tornado reports. around the 73, 74 time period, there was another peak in their occurrence. Then you get into the mid 80s. So usually about every 7, 8, 9 years we have an increase in tornado activity. The data also, as as we've analyzed the data over the years, we've also found that since about the mid 90s, there have been more reports of tornadoes, and that's a good thing in that we know that we're getting the accurate reports and we're better determining where they're at. However, we feel that prior to the mid 90s, when people became to be more educated about tornadoes and knowing how to report them and knowing that we needed to know about this so we could better document them, we feel that a lot of the tornadoes, especially the small ones, previous to the mid 90s were not documented. So it would be a good research project to go back and try to find some of the ones that did not get documented, and we do feel there were quite a few that kind of slipped through the cracks prior to the mid 90s. But the increase in frequency of tornadoes annually has been shown through our data to increase. Overall, we are getting more reports of the smaller tornadoes, the ones that are 100-mile-an-hour winds and less. So it's good that we get the data, because we need to know with the data that there is a threat county by county across our area, so that there can be precautions taken to hopefully prepare people better and utilize newer technology to hopefully get people to a safe place and time. That's the objective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure, working with the National Weather Service, I know you work in this general area, but do you also compare our numbers for this area nationwide? How do we compare in this area? Are we the worst hit, or are there other states that have more frequency of tornadoes than we do in Tennessee and Alabama? Well,
we are part of kind of a peak area, I guess you could say. The east central Mississippi, from about Jackson, Mississippi, extending kind of northeast into our area, is kind of a hot spot, and through west central Alabama, through about the Birmingham areas. Middle Tennessee also is another peak area, from north of where we're at here toward the Nashville area. A lot of it's terrain based. We're still trying to exactly prove that, but there are a lot of factors that lead to the development of tornadoes. So we're continuing to do research with University of Alabama Huntsville and the meteorologists with the Marshall Space Flight Center through NASA, and we're coming up with some pretty interesting data, and we're still looking at it, and still before we want to key in on those areas and say this is why, this is what it is. But there's still quite a bit of research going on before we can out and out say that that's the reason. But the other area in Oklahoma, between about North Texas through Oklahoma City, and there's another in Kansas, the Topeka area. Those are some other hot spots, I guess you could say, for tornado activity.
Is this why we have been so lovingly nicknamed Tornado Alley in this region, Tim, or is that?
Yeah, that could be definitely true. It's something that we have to deal with year by year. In the Northeast, they deal with winter storms and blizzards, and we're just in an area where there is a clash of air masses between colder, drier air coming down to our area from the northwest with warm, moist air over our region, and that usually sets the stage for the development of violent thunderstorms. And it's just important this time of the year to keep a close watch to the weather and be prepared to move to that safe location when you need to.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk a lot more about that too, the safety in dealing with these severe storms. But you've got some other great statistics and information about these tornadoes, and we definitely want to keep that on the forefront, so this is the time of year we need to be on the lookout for those.
Sure, and looking at our data, what we continue to research it, we've determined involving the percentage of years with tornadoes month by month. We have found that there's been a high percentage somewhere in that 40 percentile by month across March, April, and May. Those are just some peak months there where the data has indicated, of course, that those are the 3 peak months. November is a secondary severe weather season where we do get a smaller percentage, about of the tornadoes that have occurred per year. When we look at tornado, I guess you could say, involving our research, tornado occurrence, where you might have the EF2 or greater. Those are the tornadoes with winds approaching or above 100 miles an hour that can produce an extensive amount of roof damage or knock down walls or even to the point of destroying a location. The tornadoes that we've looked at historically, when you look at the numbers, you're getting into the 8 to 10 range per year in our area. Those peak years, of course, were 2011, and then back into the mid-70s there, April 3rd, 74, 73 to the 75 time period. There was also kind of another peak in the mid to late 50s where we had amounts in the 7 range in that year of a total amount of tornadoes that were damaging to destructive. And each year, we have had tornadoes across our area that have approached or been above that, with the exception of just probably about 4 or 5 years through the data. So that's an important thing to think about. If a tornado is approaching, we should definitely be prepared and treat all tornadoes with that sense of urgency that we need to be in that safe location, because it's not a matter on our part of the country if, it's when, as we head into the spring. So
that's right. But Tim, so many of us stay because of the technology and the availability of getting that news and information and the weather updates. We're glued to the TV, watching it come over us as you show the little circulations and the movements and the red coming across. And so many of us don't go to that safe place anymore, and that could be a very dangerous thing.
It can be. Tornadoes can increase and intensify in the matter of seconds. They can pick up speed, slow down. They're still unpredictable, involving the direction of movement, and we have to make corrections ourselves at the National Weather Service from time to time involving the path. And we send out these updated severe weather statements that give everyone a kind of not only a heads up, but an update from the original warning.
Okay.
So these are things that folks, when we issue the warnings, it's important for everyone to definitely treat all tornadoes with the same sense of urgency that, hey, over the next few minutes, it's important for us to go that safe place just in case. It could be that time that it gets where you're at. And when we completed our research since 1874 involving tornado and the percentages, the smaller tornadoes, so these are the EF0.
Explain that.
Okay.
Because you said that a while ago. What is the EF rating?
The EF scale is a scale that's based upon the amount of damage that we survey after the event's over with. When a tornado moves or high winds move across an area and it's expected that was a tornado, we at the National Weather Service will go to the location. We will survey the damage and determine if it was a tornado or not. If you have tornado damage, your damage in most cases, everything is going to be snarled, twisted, and there should be a pretty good path. Usually it's a mile or two or more long, and it's usually from the southwest to the northeast, and as most tornadoes move from that direction. So when we look at the damage, we determine based upon the extent of the damage how bad the tornado was. And based upon the Fujita scale, we did an increase to that scale, or a update to it, about 7 years ago. And we were able to more accurately define the wind ranges involving these tornadoes. So looking at the damage, we can say if you had an EF0 tornado occur, you're going to have wind speeds in the range of 65 to 85 miles an hour. And in our area, detecting that, looking at the surveyed damage, about 24% of all tornadoes occurring are in the EF0 category. Those are the type of tornadoes that are going to, knock maybe take a shingle or two off your home, knock over small trees, maybe take out power lines, and do some nuisance damage, but still it's damage, and it can be dangerous at that point. Any tornado on the ground is dangerous, and we should take heed. And EF1 is wind speeds in the range from 86 to 110 miles an hour. So you're getting into the more stronger at range at this point. About 31% of our tornadoes that have been surveyed reach that EF1 category. And I do want to point out, we can't look at the radar and give an accurate indication that, oh, that's a EF0, that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 3. There are several limiting factors based upon the fact that where we're looking at the radar from, which is High Top, Alabama, it's a good 30 to 40 miles away, or somewhere in that range as a crow flies. Well, the beam from the radar lifts with height. So we're probably hitting the storm here somewhere between that 4,000 to 6,000 feet range. So we may be detecting high winds at that level in the atmosphere. The real question is, are the winds making it down to the ground? That's why it's still important for us to have trained spotters. And we kind of feel like, we may have that, that wind range within that tornado based upon what we can see on the radar. But we still need to have that visual confirmation, and we still have to go out there afterwards to verify that there was that strength of damage from what we were thinking based upon what we saw on the radar.
Now, can you detect if one is on the ground or if it just has the capability of turning into the full tornado?
Well, we can basically detect that there's a high potential that tornado would be on the ground.
Okay.
And at that point, it's still important for us to have trained visual spotters so that folks can tell us, hey, we've had several trees down here where there's been a building destroyed, tornadoes moving northeast, things like that. We still, with the great technology, we still need to have that visual confirmation to help us out in the process so that we can better warn folks, further up the road that will be in the path of the high winds.
Okay, very good.
When you get into the EF2 tornadoes, that gets in the 111 to 135 mile an hour range, and across our area, about 28% of those tornadoes are the ones that are getting into the strong to the violent type. The EF3, 136 mile an hour winds to 165 mile an hour winds. About 10% of those tornadoes are in the EF3 range. EF4, that's 166 miles an hour to 200 mile an hour winds. Very violent, destructive tornado at this point. 5% of our tornadoes are in the EF4 range. And involving the worst tornadoes, the EF5s, that's when you have winds over 200 miles an hour within the tornado. 1% of our tornadoes that have occurred are EF5. So when you look at the violent tornadoes, 6% of the tornadoes are violent. 94% are getting toward the smaller tornadoes. But all tornadoes are dangerous, but the 4s and the 5s are the ones that we definitely need to be either underground or out of the way of them, because that's probably the only sure way you're going to be protected.
Right. Now, give us a flashback here. In April 2011, which strength tornado hit Lincoln County?
On that day, there was the one that moved through in the morning was typically in the EF1 to 2 range. So it did a decent amount of damage as it moved through early in the morning in that 4 to 5 a.m. time period through the southwest part of the county into just, as you move into Fayetteville area near Riverside Christian Academy, in that area off of 110 and 231 there was a decent amount of damage as the tornado moved across the road there. So the later on in the afternoon, there were other tornadoes that had stronger, damage categories. Mainly were in Franklin County in that Huntland area. There were some, EF2 to 3 range and even some larger areas through that location. So,
And comparing what we experience here, because it's still fresh on our minds,
Sure.
especially this time of year. Compare the damage that we had here in northern Alabama and southern Tennessee to what happened in Joplin, Missouri, because we also remember vivid images of what happened there as well, Tim.
In the vicinity of our area, there were EF4s and 5s that were in the same category as the tornado, which did move through the Joplin, Missouri area in late May. So, you know, that was hopefully that will just be a 1 in 40 year event. Mm-hmm. But you know, there's no way of knowing, you know, based upon the technology, when that type of outbreak will occur again. Again, it's not a matter if, it's when, and the intensity of a couple of the tornadoes that moved through North Alabama, especially across Franklin County, Alabama, near Russellville, through up and through Limestone County, and then there was another tornado that occurred in the Rainsville area in DeKalb County, Alabama, near Fort Payne. Those tornadoes were of the extreme intensity, the EF5s, and they were very large tornadoes that rivaled the Joplin one.
Now, when you're tracking all this and you're making your predictions based on all your readings and technology that you have there at your office, can you get a gauge on how big the tornado is while it's in the air, or does it have to hit the ground? And because we've seen pictures, and you're sharing some pictures with us today, Tim, of what some of these tornadoes look like. I mean, we've seen very small ones, we've seen very big ones. Does that go along with the EF ratings too that you described?
You're correct in that estimation. We can look at the radar and give a good indication to ourselves based upon what we're looking at that this could be a large tornado, and we would definitely convey that sense of urgency to the public and to the media so that folks can be warned effectively. But it's still of the utmost importance to have those trained storm spotters and folks to give us the visual confirmation so that we will further give that sense of emergency in the case that there is a violent tornado approaching.
Good. And like you said, they can occur any month during the year. They can occur any time of day. And I think that's our biggest fear, Tim,
Yes.
is that a tornado occurring at night. Because you can't see it coming. How often does that happen here in our area?
In the southern middle Tennessee area here, including Lincoln County, about 46% of tornadoes occur after dark. And that is a problem in our part of the country. The reason they do in a lot of cases occur like that, it's just the timing of their development with the storm systems as they move across the region. In some cases, when these areas of low pressure and cold fronts move across the Tennessee Valley region, they'll be pushing into our area from the Mississippi River by the early to mid-afternoon. By the time the storms develop and move into our specific region here, in most cases it may be after 6, 7 o'clock at night in some cases. So that's the problem. And we also get the timing of the tornadoes occurring in the overnight hours after midnight. It's just the timing of their movement across the region as to when we do get the tornadoes that do occur. There have been other, noted events where Memorial Day 2004, that tornado event occurred after midnight across our area here. So folks need to be thinking about that. If it's at night, you're not going to see the tornado until it's probably just about right on top of you. Two things that can help you involve in spotting high winds or damage approaching you can be when the tornado is approaching. In most cases in our part of the country, you may have nearly constant lightning in and around where the tornado is. That's the main energy area of where the tornado is located. Or if you live or are located near a transformer or service line, when the high winds hit it, it's going to create that flash. So that flash can definitely give you that idea that, hey, something either big or high winds are approaching. But at that point, you may have less than a few seconds to get to your safe place. So it's very important to heed our warnings, especially in the overnight hours, because we're going to have these events that are going to occur.
Yeah, unfortunately. And like you say, you know, a lot of times we watch the news before we go to bed at night, and if there's a chance that we're going to have severe weather, you know, and a lot of times, unfortunately, when it comes to our area, sometimes the power goes out.
Yeah.
You know, trees get knocked down, power lines fall, and so you're not going to be able to run to the living room or your bedroom and turn the TV on to find out what's going on. And that's where that all-important battery-powered weather radio is so vital to have this time of year, especially, to wake you up in the night and let you know. But you've got other things that you all are doing too. In addition to that, and we definitely want to talk about that in the safety part, but you've got some other things too. And this is one of my big questions. I see what's coming up.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of us here at FPU work outside.
Sure.
And you all came, I think you actually came to our building, it's been a couple of years ago, and trained all the employees as storm spotters. Because they are outdoors, they work in every part of this county when the severe weather hits. Tell us what we can look for. I mean, I know you can't train us all right now to be storm spotters, but what are we looking for? What does the sky look like? Because I know sometimes I've been outside when it's kind of eerie out and we see the storm fronts coming. You see that dark cloud coming, and it just gives you an eerie feeling, thinking, is there a tornado with this? But it's simply just a cold front or a warm front or whatever comes across. But educate us a little bit on this, Tim.
If you're located southeast of the storm, so if you can, get your geography situated as the storm is approaching, that's the thing to be thinking about. When you're at that location looking off to the northwest at the storm, that'll give you the best viewing angle. That will allow you to be able to see the whole storm for where it's at and where it's headed. You won't get caught in the heavy rain area, especially if you're a couple miles or so away from the storm. And that'll help you be able to see where the tornado could be forming. Tornadoes usually form on the southwest corner of the storm toward the back side of the thunderstorm, right before the storm is ending. So if you're located in the direction the storm is moving, it's moving right in on you. So if you can picture this in your mind as the storm is approaching, what you'll feel is a strong gust of wind. I'm sure we've all felt that as the storm approaches, and the temperature may drop 10 or 15 degrees. Then light rain will occur, moderate rain, heavy rain. That's in the heavy rain region of the storm. If it starts to hail, the thing to be watching for is for the sky to have a green shading. If you see that green shading or see that off in the distance, or that's where it's hailing. And usually the hail will get larger and larger, and if it gets above between penny size and above to golf ball size especially, that means there are really strong up and down drafts of wind and circulation in the winds within the storm. So the more circulation in the storm, it means there's more of a potential for a tornado form. So as that continues, you begin to maybe notice a isolated lowering in the cloud base, southwest corner of the storm, toward the backside of the thunderstorm. That's just past the heavy rain, the hail region. In my opinion, not a good way to end a thunderstorm, but that's where the tornado is going to form if it's going to happen. And just look for the isolated lowering of the cloud base or bottom of the cloud. It'll be well below the rest of the base or bottom of the thunderstorm, and it'll look like I guess you could say like a cone, or a cone shaped in look, and it will extend down with probably an isolated area. Usually it's a rain-free cloud base, nothing much there, and as that continues to form, that's the area of what we call wall cloud. And wall clouds, they're the precursor to tornadoes. So you'll want to begin to watch and look for rotation in the winds. If there's going to be a funnel cloud, it's going to form in the middle of the wall cloud. And that funnel, if it's more than halfway down to the ground, in most cases, it will touch down and become a tornado. Tornadoes, can be violent. As we were earlier saying, the tornadoes, of course, from our, outbreak from last year, the ones that gained the most notoriety were the south of us in Tuscaloosa and through the Birmingham area, but we had just as many violent tornadoes in our region too that resulted in, unfortunately over 100 fatalities on April 27th in the North Alabama, Southern Middle Tennessee area. And that event extended way up into East Tennessee. There were tornadoes, violent tornadoes in the Smoky Mountain region and even in Southwest Virginia. So it was a very out of the ordinary event when it did happen. And there were tornadoes in our region in Coleman County that was a violent one. It was an EF4. It moved through the downtown region there. And the Phil Campbell tornado was an EF5. It moved through the Hackleburg area and did a lot of extensive damage across those areas. So I hope everyone is just not frightened to death about the fact a tornado is, when it does occur, it is of the utmost seriousness. But most tornadoes are very small in range versus a hurricane. Most tornadoes are less than a half-mile wide, a quarter of a mile in most cases. And they usually are only on the ground a couple miles or so, except for the violent ones, which can travel several miles. Those are the ones that we really have to keep a close watch out for. They're the most destructive and deadly ones. Involving tornadoes further, as we quit wrapping up on the tornado section, we are in a tornado, it's been determined with research, a tornado maximum area in the southeast here. It's called the Dixie Alley. The main tornado alley was always determined to be across North Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, into Iowa. But more research has been determined that there is a tornado maximum region here from about northeast Arkansas through West Tennessee, North Mississippi, North Alabama, and to southern Middle Tennessee that we do call the Dixie Alley. And as that research continues, we will learn more about some of the factors as to why it does occur.
Very good. I know we're going to kind of swing away from the tornado, but one thing I want you to explain to us one more time, and we need to know this every year as those warnings start coming across our TV and radios. What is the difference between a severe weather warning or a watch?
A watch means conditions are favorable for severe weather in and close to your area. So when we at the National Weather Service determine that a particular type of watch needs to be issued, that's when the Storm Prediction Center, they work with the local meteorologist at our office and surrounding offices in our region, and we determined first what type of severe weather we're going to be expecting. What's going to be more predominant severe weather-wise? Are there going to be any tornadoes? In most cases, if we think there's going to be a tornado threat, we'll go ahead with a tornado watch. If there's just going to be a threat of large hail and damaging winds, a severe thunderstorm watch would be issued. A watch means conditions are favorable. Doesn't mean they're going to necessarily happen, but all the ingredients are there to support the development of severe weather. So I kind of equate it to baking cookies. All those ingredients are there, and you got to put it. It's got to be all put together to have it ready. And the watch means that keep a close watch to that weather. Watch out for that potential. If there's more of a threat of just large hail and damaging winds, a severe thunderstorm watch. When we mean large hail, that means 1 inch in diameter size hail or larger. It's quarter size or larger hail. Mm-hmm. Damaging wind gusts greater than 58 miles an hour. And that can produce structural damage, very similar to tornado-like damage. Just because it's twisting and snarled doesn't mean it can't be just as damaging if it's blowing from west to east or blowing outward.
Is it what you call a straight line wind?
Straight line wind would be the type of damage where everything is blown from one direction to the other, west to east, northwest to southeast in most cases. In the summer months, we have the short-lived thunderstorms that produce wind damage known as microburst. And what happens with that is a storm collapses, all the energy spreads out in both directions, the high winds in all directions of the storm, and it kind of looks like a bomb has exploded where the high winds hit the ground. And usually it's an isolated area, less than a mile wide when that happens. But you just don't want to be underneath it when it happens in most cases.
Definitely not.
When the watch is issued, usually the next 4 to 6 hours out from when the watch is put into effect, we expect the potential to be there for severe weather of some variety to occur within the watch area. When we at the Weather Service then begin to monitor even more closely, which we would, the storms, when they begin to develop, if the storms then show signs that they're about to produce large hail or damaging winds, then we'll issue a severe thunderstorm warning. When the storm begins to then show strong rotation in the winds, lowest levels of the atmosphere, we will then at that point need to be issuing a tornado warning, especially when we have visual confirmation from trained storm spotters that we're going to have in the area a funnel cloud that could be getting close to the ground. Then at that point we would definitely have that tornado warning in effect. Okay. Our average warning lead time for tornadoes is right at now about 13 minutes or so, and that's been basically a standard for the last few years with the technology we have at the Weather Service. There is, based upon what we feel, a optimal warning lead time. We don't want to give folks too long because they may begin to venture out of their safe location, but you want to give everybody enough time to get to that safe place, because some people could be outdoors away from that safe place and they need several minutes to move into the appropriate safe location. So
very good. And talking about the weather warnings and the weather watches, I know most of us probably get that information by watching TV, hearing on the radio, the weather radios that we talked about. But there's other things too that the National Weather Service is doing to get those messages out to us as immediately as you possibly can, Tim. You might give folks an idea of what they can start looking for.
Well, you can always visit our website. The easiest way to get to it is just to go to weather.gov, then /Huntsville. Spell Huntsville out, and we have all kinds of weather information on our website. We have headlines involving if there's a severe weather event expected, it will be headlined on the top of the website, caution or even worse if the event is expected. We also put together a short-term graphical forecast that we call the Graphicast that'll give you kind of like the weather expected across the area for today, and we also do a long-term version of that. We have an interactive watch warning advisory map that's on our front page of our website that will light up in the appropriate color scheme when watches and warnings are issued. Watch, you usually have a yellow shade to it. Warnings will be the red variety at that point. We have the point and click forecast that's included in that. And of course we have several ways that you can look at in the real-time observations of the weather, including weather observing sites in our area, all the airports that are in our area. We have weather stations, and you can look at the hourly conditions hour by hour across those locations, including the Fayetteville Airport here. And also, of course, we have the high top radar and other radars in the surrounding region that you can look at the latest radar conditions and satellite imagery. If you're interested in wanting to see where the cloud lines are moving across the area, when is it going to clear out, you can kind of forecast the weather kind of yourself too, along with us.
Look at your website. That's great. Okay.
And we do have plenty of additional links on our website. Any and all weather information you might be interested in would hopefully be on our website. There's a lot of climate information, so if you're needing previous weather data, you can go to our website from certain days or events. We have a historical tornado database on our website also that has all the tornadoes county by county listed and all the particulars. So those are some other things for folks to take a look at. We also have a weather site here for folks that have smartphones. It's mobile.weather.gov, mobile.weather.gov. You can go to that website, and if you have a smartphone, you can get that app and get it put in there, and you can look at radar data on your smartphone, forecast information on your smartphone, specifically that'll be in the right formatting for your phone. So
is that any area that you might be traveling to, or is it just locked in for this area?
And that can be any area within the country, and that could be very helpful for you, because I know a lot of us these days have the smartphone technology, and that's it's becoming more and more prevalent. And with a lot of the smartphones now, there is, I know especially with some of the providers now, tornado warnings are definitely alerted on the smartphones. So that can help you if you have the GPS enacted on your phone. That can give you that immediate weather alert. No matter where you're at in the U.S., you'll get that warning.
Yeah, that's great to have.
So there are some other ways that we get weather warnings out to the public, and I can't stress more. Have more than one way to get your warning. You never know. Never fail. Something is going to fail, whether it's your weather radio or your TV or
you're just not close to the one thing you usually rely on.
Yeah, your smartphone or however. Have more than one way to monitor your weather just in case. And obviously, in addition to the internet, most people, over 80%, get their severe weather warnings via TV or AM/FM radio. If you don't have a NOAA weather radio, I highly recommend getting one. You can get them at just about any electronic store. Walmart even sells them, and they're the radios that have the specific area message encoding or SAME. Allows you to get the warning for just your county or surrounding county that you want to know about, and you can get that set up on your radio, and with the battery backup capabilities of NOAA weather radio, you can get the warnings after your electrical power is out up to a day or two. So like for April 27th, if we had another event coming on its heels, if you had a weather radio, you'd know about it just because of having that technology. So cell phones, of course, there are several mobile apps, of course, you can use, and social media. I know on Twitter, a lot of the warnings are being rebroadcast, and Facebook and so forth. We don't do that because of staffing issues. There's just so many things, but we try to work with other folks to get that set up for that. So outdoor warning sirens are another important thing,
yes.
and I know in Lincoln County there are several in the county for the necessary areas. And I want to say it's important to have to heed a warning. That's where it's been alerted about outdoor warning siren. But they're what they really are. They're outdoor warning sirens, not indoor warning sirens. So get your weather radio if you don't have one. That can be your indoor warning siren. And that way you get your warnings directly from the National Weather Service. But we work closely with all the media and everyone and radio stations. So, it's important to get your warnings. However way you get them, feel comfortable with it, and just be prepared.
Right. Very good, Tim. And it's very important, too, to know what to do once you get those warnings.
Yes.
Is it a time to panic? Is it a time to keep calm? Know where to go, like you're talking about your safe place. And we've been learning lately about, put as many walls between you and the tornado or the severe weather as you can. Don't go underneath the house necessarily unless you've got a storm shelter prepared for that. But you see a lot of people now that are digging up their backyard and putting those underground tornado shelters in.
Sure.
It's a good thing to have if you can afford them and keep your family safe. But again, remind us, in an average home, what's the safest place to go?
The most interior part of your home or location is your safest place. Have 4 good sturdy walls around you. Most tornadoes travel from the southwest to the northeast, so it's important not to be on that southwest corner of your home or location because that's what it's going to hit first. So try to stay away from your exterior walls too, because that's going to be the most just area of potential destruction. So it's important to have either a bathroom or a hallway, or obviously even a basement is the best place to be. Cover your head. Most injuries are head related due to flying debris, and it's important to make sure that you have enough time to get to that safe place, and have it predetermined. Have a severe weather safety plan for your home, not only your business but your home, and be prepared to have a cell phone handy. Have a helmet if you need it. You know, it may
I know, my
sound kind of
children
silly.
never understand why they're
but
wearing their softball and baseball helmets during that time. I said, honey, you'll thank me later.
It's true.
But it is important. We're talking about the children, because a lot of times we get our severe weather at the time where the kids are getting on a school bus or going home, or maybe school's let out early because of severe weather, and our kids are at home, Tim.
It's true.
It's important to make sure as parents or grandparents or supervisors of these children, they know what to do in case there's not an adult at home. They need to know where to go to grab that softball or baseball helmet and protect themselves.
It's true, and a lot of people don't think about it until it's too late, but keep your shoes on. You could be walking on busted glass afterwards if you don't have your shoes. And then, obviously, by having the cell phone handy, if you get trapped, you can call 911. They will notify emergency management immediately, and they'll know about it. Emergency management, they'll notify us at the Weather Service, and we'll get that back out to the media so that we can further alert folks that could be in the path in a few minutes of the tornado that it has just struck this location, and it's still on the ground, and there's still damage occurring. So, with that in mind, the other things that I can think of, obviously in a home is don't be near windows, and
don't stand out on the front porch and watch it go over you either.
Definitely
but
not.
That's so tempting.
It is important that you don't do that when the tornado is approaching. Better protect yourself. Don't try to get that video of the tornado. Don't run outside. Go to that safe place, because your life is more important than getting that video or chasing a storm.
Right.
Because in our area, the way the tornadoes move, they're unpredictable. The timing of the day, the roads are curvy and windy. You could be heading back toward the tornado or the high winds.
Oh, wow.
So I definitely discourage anyone from chasing tornadoes in our part of the country. In Oklahoma, Texas areas, that's great where you can see 40 miles in any direction. But here
in Tennessee,
no, it's not going to happen.
Right. And talking about those things and being safe, and I think we're going to jump ahead in our discussion a little bit, Tim, but talking about the safety of tornadoes. I know years ago we've heard people say that they survived a tornado when they're driving down the interstate because they pulled over off the interstate under an overpass.
Yes.
Is that a safe thing to do?
An overpass is dangerous and deadly. In Moore, Oklahoma, May 3rd, 1999, there were about 20 people that got up and under an overpass. They got out of their vehicles and so forth, and clogged up the roads. And because of that, folks could not get out of the way of the tornado. A large tornado was approaching. They thought, from what they had seen a few years previous from a TV news crew that successfully rode out a tornado under an overpass, that it was safe. Well, it was determined by research, because the tornado was in an area where there were at least 3 Doppler radars that were within 30 miles of the tornado. They determined that the wind speeds within the tornado, the winds funneled into that area and increased by as much as 25% more compared to what was actually inside the tornado. So that funneling of the winds increased the wind speeds in that area where those folks were by as much as more than 25%. So they already had about 150 mile an hour winds approaching. So it got closer to that 180 to 200 mile an hour range, and it sucked everyone out of that area. It killed over 10 people and severely injured the rest of the folks that were under that overpass. So since that, it's been very important for us to get that message out that do not get up and under an overpass. Either move on to a sturdier structure. And when you're driving home in the afternoon and evenings, especially in the spring and the times of the year where we have severe weather in the afternoon, and that usually that 4 or 5 o'clock time period, that's the maximum timing of when we can get that severe weather sometimes in our area. Now is the time to have 3 or 4 locations along your normal route home predetermined. Know where to go if a tornado is spotted or heading toward you, or you see one coming. Get out of that vehicle and move into a sturdier structure. All it takes is about 80 miles an hour worth of wind that can lift up a vehicle and toss it. And about every tornado has wind speeds at or above 80 miles an hour. So that's why it's important to get out of that vehicle, because obviously you're better off in a safer location, in an interior hallway or a closet or a bathroom or a basement than you would be in a vehicle. Even if you're strapped in, you could end up flying as an airborne object, and there's nothing good about landing once you're airborne.
No, I imagine not. Now, what if you travel, like for me, for instance? Okay, going home in the evenings from work, I pass nothing but residential area.
Sure.
And the only place that you could safely get to would be a barn, and that's not a good thing. That's like an overpass.
Yeah, a barn is
Where
not a
would you
safe
go
place.
if you're saying not staying in your vehicle and there's no sturdy building per se other than a locked home?
If you're not exactly sure of the direction the tornado's moving, and you don't know for sure the direction the road is, it's important to get out of that vehicle and get into a low unflooded ditch and just try to ride it out at that point, especially if it's getting close to you, because it's going to keep coming. It's not going to stop. And a lot of folks have second nature of saying, well, I'm in my vehicle, I'm still safe.
Right. It's
but you're
heavier
not
than
going
I
to be
am.
safe in a few more seconds.
Right.
As long as you stay in that vehicle, because you're probably not going to outrun it. Because of the speed of the tornado
and the windy, twisty
roads and so forth, and you would be better off in the long run in most cases of being maybe wet and maybe scratched up a little bit versus a worse alternative,
Right.
and that could be fatal injury.
Right. But if you're already in town and you're in a safe place, it's best just to stay there.
Stay in a safe location.
And I know we worry about our children, because they may be at home by themselves during the severe weather, but if they're trained to know what to do, they'll be taken care of.
Yes.
But, you're not going to do them any good if you're out trying to get home to them and you're injured very seriously on the way.
That's true. No place is 100% safe,
Right.
but it's our personal responsibility to know where to go to that safe location, and try to do what we can to make ourselves as safe as possible.
All right. Good advice, Tim. All right, what else do you have for us today?
Well, we want to talk about as we're heading into the spring, the next 3 months, the severe weather and the other outlooks that could be upon us now, as a lot of folks are wondering, how bad is it going to be this spring? Or is it going to be warmer than normal? Is it going to be drier than normal? Well, the answer is it's going to be normal. So
whatever the new normal is.
The new normal
right?
would be, average high temperatures as we approach early March would be typically in the low 60s, lows at night in the low to mid 40s. As we head through April, the high temperatures rise through the 70s to near 80 by the end of May. Overnight lows through March, low 40s starting out, getting into the 50s by April, and mid to upper 50s to close to 60 by the end of May. So that's basically our normals month by month through that time period. We typically average for the year close to 60 inches of rainfall across our region, which is great. If you take it month by month, that's typically between about 5 to 6 inches in the spring. That would be our normals. So we're going to probably, if the current conditions continue, we're probably going to pretty well hit in there close to normal month by month through March, April, and May. So with that in mind, usually with thunderstorms we have severe weather. So it's probably going to be a normal severe weather season. So we may have a few tornado events folks to keep in mind about.
But nothing that you all see right now at your office is telling us it's going to be a more severe spring or anything. We're just looking at normal temperatures. So we can go ahead and make plans to put out our garden pretty early this year.
Well,
that's not a fair question to ask.
It's not a fair question to ask. The thing I'd like to say, is we are, the 90-day outlook is looking for about equal chances of having above or below normal. So just based upon how the trending has been going, we've been running just a little bit above normal temperature-wise. But we can have freezes all the way up to April.
Right.
So I would follow your normal each year, your normal planting routine, and hope for the best.
That's right. That's all we can do, putting one out, is hope for the best.
That's right.
All right. And Tim, I know there's lots of other weather conditions. I know we talked about early on about the high winds, the straight line winds. We talked about hail damage and some crazy things that we've seen here with the
Sure.
hailstorm not too many years ago. Flooding, we talked about the amount of rain that we've had this year and last year too. We've seen some pretty decent flooding conditions. Do you think that's going to continue throughout our spring?
Well, with at or slightly above normal precipitation so far as through the winter, it has led to soil conditions to thankfully get at or slightly toward the wet side. So if we continue to get some heavy rain events, there likely could be some potential for some flooding from time to time. The Elk River, which runs through the county, it can be particularly flashy as far as the river is concerned. So this time of the year is a time of the year where you could get a quick rise on the river, and we may have to from time to time issue some river flood warnings for the Elk River. So in most cases, the Elk River, when it's in flood, is usually for mainly agricultural interests or in low-lying areas. But historically, there has been some significant events in the past. So it's something that we should just keep in mind as we're in a more wet time of the year. So, the thing to think about involving flash flooding would be or flooding, obviously move to that higher ground and just don't drive across flooded roads. If there's water crossing the roads, even if it's just a few inches of water over the road, that flowing water is moving fast. So it doesn't take very much to lift up a vehicle and carry it off, or knock you down if you get into the water and push you further along in the water. So, our motto with the National Weather Service is we've developed this motto. It's called "Turn Around, Don't Drown." It means obviously, if you don't turn around and you get in that water, you are in the threat then at that point of potentially drowning. And in the state of Tennessee, there has been a law that's been put in place that if you go around the flood cones on purpose and drive on through and go through where there's signs in place and they have to go in and rescue you, then you could potentially be fined at that point, or even spend the night in jail at that point. It is a misdemeanor for doing this, because not only are you putting your life in danger, but you're putting the emergency services folks in danger too, because they have to go in and fish you out. So at that point, that becomes a public safety issue. And our objective with the Weather Service is for protection of life and property. That's our number one objective, and we want to do what we can to mitigate that loss of life and property due to flash flooding. Especially flooding related to thunderstorms and flash flooding is the number one weather killer nationwide, year by year, related to thunderstorms. So heat is the number one weather killer across the country overall, but related to thunderstorms, it's flash flooding. And folks just think with the SUVs and the vans and so forth and trucks, they can just drive on through those flooded roads, and that's where a lot of times they get caught in a bad spot.
They sure do. And even if it's just a mile and a half from your house, you need to turn around and find an alternate route. And that goes back to the whole thing about thinking to be more safe, is have a plan B to get home, or to do the things you need to do if there's flooding. There's always an alternative.
Absolutely. So. And just don't go into those flooded roads. Wait it out, or like you say, go back the way you came and go around.
Look for
looking at some statistics involving flood fatalities, some recent statistics found that about 63% of fatalities were from folks that were driving into flooded roads. About 15% fell into the water, and then walking, running, or swimming through the water about 7%. And boating was about 4%, and folks that were in their home that were flooded out, about 4%. So again, that driving issue is the big thing. And there were a lot of folks, unfortunately, that were caught in the floodwaters in May of 2010 in the Nashville area. But the other weather hazard that can occur frequently within thunderstorms is hail. And hail develops, of course, in the up and down drafts within the thunderstorm, the area just in advance where the tornado is going to form. And the obvious thing about hail is if you see the green shading in the clouds, that's the hailstones, and that's where the sun is reflecting off the hailstones, creating that tint, hue, or color. So if that's occurring, obviously you don't want to get near it, or try to get out of the way from it. So,
right.
And
most of the time, Tim, we see hail is, like the size of a dime or a penny,
Yeah.
and it's always round, but not necessarily so.
Not necessarily so. Hailstones can be all shapes. Usually they're jagged, and that can be very sharp. So that's why it's important not to get caught out there in a hailstorm.
You've seen damage. You've got pictures of some of the damage where it's just broken out the glass in vehicles even. You can imagine what that would do to a human body outside trying to seek shelter. So it can be dangerous.
Very dangerous. And the thing to think about with hailstones is they are traveling to the ground at a speed approaching 100 miles an hour. So picture in your mind the fastest Major League Baseball pitcher throwing you 100-mile-an-hour fastball from the top of a cloud. So that's basically what's going on.
Right.
And it's not going to be perfectly round and beautiful shaped. It's going to be jagged because there's going to be several hailstones combined to create the large hailstone. And it's definitely going to be sharp. And
so that is a weather threat too, and a lot of times we don't think of it that way. But yeah,
so
be aware of it too.
Look, we've done a lot of historical research too on involving severe hail and wind, and the main severe weather season, March, April, and May. When you get to that April time period, May, that's going to be in that peak time period. But we typically do have a lot of high winds and hail that run even through June, July, and August. Not as much the tornado threat as you get in that summertime period, but the severe storm damage threat. And high winds are high winds, whether they're twisting or blowing one direction or blowing outward. All high winds are dangerous, and we can get severe weather any month of the year, day or night, in our region. So it's important to just be safe and go to that safe place.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing we definitely want folks to remember today is how to be safe when severe weather hits, because we do live in an area, we've seen it recently, the amount of damage it can do, and if you're prepared, that's the whole thing, being prepared, listening for those warnings and the watches that are put out there by the news media, by the National Weather Service, and take them seriously. Don't stand on the front porch or call your neighbor and chat for the next hour about the weather coming. You need to take precautions and make sure that your family is prepared, because you may not always be with them.
It's true.
And so you've given us some wonderful advice. Anything else we need to know today, Tim?
The important thing is involving storms is the big tornadoes when they're coming. If we're getting reports that this is a big tornado, it's important to get out of its way or get in that storm shelter. Try to hang on the best that you can. No place is 100% safe, but try to maximize your potential to make it through the event. That's the number one objective of what we try to do at the National Weather Service. And by your help with us at FPU, you're helping us to get that message out to folks in the county, and we really appreciate that. We work real close with you and emergency management in the county, Mike Hall and Kathy Hovis, and the radio stations in the area and the TV stations, and we want to continue that warning safety triad, all of us working together to get that message out that it's not a matter of if, it's when we're going to have severe weather in our area. So with that in mind, I just want to say we really appreciate this partnership, and we want to definitely hope in the future that folks will continue to be safe and do what they can to learn more about how to get safe and how to get a severe weather safety plan together. And there's more information on our website about preparedness and safety to it, weather.gov/Huntsville. Your local American Red Cross, County Emergency Management, they have plenty of brochures and other information that can further help you, especially if you're a new resident to the area. We have a lot of folks that move in and out of the region, and the thing I want to tell folks is learn your counties, learn the cities, the locations nearby, because when severe weather strikes, they're going to be talking about these locations. So that's going to help you to get a feel for how far away it is and where's it going to be heading, and so forth like that. So, you know, I really feel that this year we're probably going to have more of a normal severe weather season. It was nice that we had a down year last year after 2011, but you know, it does run basically in cycles, so you know, it's going to happen again. So we need to be prepared and be ready for that time.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hopefully we'll get that 6 to 7 year break like you talked about on average.
That
but
would
it's
be
not
nice.
a guarantee.
No guarantees.
But that's why you folks work at the National Weather Service to keep an eye on it every day and every night for us, to give us those warnings when it's time to take cover. So thank you very much for being with us, Tim. You've given us some great information to think about, and do take it seriously. If you don't have a severe weather preparedness plan together for you and your family, you need to do so today. You know, severe weather months are right around the corner, and we want to make sure that everyone stays safe and knows what to do, whether you're together at night as a family, or if the children are home by themselves and you're stuck at work or whatever and can't get to them. They need to know how to be prepared. So thank you very much, Tim. Some great information. Do take a look at their website. I've visited many times, and there is some great information, as you said, on how to be prepared and what kind of information you need. FPU also has that information as far as, you know, how to deal with power outages, and unfortunately they go hand in hand a lot of times. So what items do you need to have, and know where that kit is to survive an outage or a severe weather threat. So Tim, as always, you're welcome to come back anytime and share with us. It's great information on keeping our residents of Lincoln County safe, and we appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
All right, I learned a lot today, and I hope folks at home have too. Tim Troutman with the National Weather Service, and we thank you all very much for joining us here at FPU's Channel 6, and we hope to see you again real soon.